Hi friends, this is Calamity here, at least according to a recent study. And today we're going to talk about if you should pull for Albedo. He's going to be having his rerun banner in actually just a few days, or actually even less than that at the time of recording. And before we actually start talking about him, just want to preface these videos as I usually do, that if you are just interested in pulling for him because you like the character, you like his playstyle, etc., etc., by all means pull for him. This video is just to help people that are just on the fence or that are just curious about how to build him or just how he works in general. With that being said, let's just start off with the basic stuff. So here's his normal attacks. You're not going to be really using these at all. Albedo is a off-field DPS character, so don't expect to be using these. I don't even have this talent leveled. This is his charged attack. It's a nice animation, to be honest, but you're not going to be using it. The bread and butter of Albedo, though, is his elemental skill, which is... I just call it a flower. It has like a fancy name, but I'm just going to say he puts down a flower. It has a big AoE, and it lasts for quite a while. Basically, as long as you're in this field, every 2 seconds, you're going to be doing additional geo damage from... As long as you're in the field, you're going to see additional geo damage numbers. I'll showcase when we're actually fighting against enemies later on. Before we start, I just want to say that Albedo's kind of a weird character in general. He's easy to build and very easy to play as, but a lot of the designs about him are kind of weird, and you'll see just in a sec why. First off, what weapons does Albedo want? Believe it or not, if you are a new player and you don't have this weapon, unfortunately, you just lost out on his best weapon. The Cinnabar Spindle was a event weapon that was given out last December, I believe, and this is basically his best weapon. It gives him a lot of defense percentage, 69 exactly, nice. And that is a stat that he actually wants since it gives him more damage. In fact, the skill effect is just going to give him even more skill damage. It does 80% of his defense as additional damage. There, of course, are other weapon options. Don't feel like you have to have this weapon, although it's very good. He is one of the few characters in the game that can actually use the Harbinger of Dawn because he's on the field so little. Again, his playstyle is literally just place the flower, move on, if you don't have your burst. Even then, you don't even want to use his burst that often because you just want that AoE field. So basically, as long as you're above 90% HP, with this weapon, you will have an increased crit rate by 17.5%. And then, of course, as you level this weapon, you'll have a nice crit damage boost. This effect is very easy to sustain because, again, you're not having him on the field for a very long time. The only counter to this is if you go up against wolves. But yeah, this event weapon is definitely going to be better. It's even better than his signature weapon or even some 5 stars, to be honest. It's crazy how good this weapon is. Unfortunately, this weapon is literally only good for Albedo and no other character released yet. Artifacts! Believe it or not, Albedo actually got his own set of artifacts designed specifically for him. Now, Husk of Opulent Dreams is also great for a bunch of other Geo characters that scale off defense, like Arataki Ito and Noel. But you might see this long 4-piece effect and basically damage, right? That's all you need to know is damage. And the way you're going to build Albedo is the same way you would build any other off-field or sub-DPS. You're just going to want... Well, other than the fact that he wants defense percentage. So, if we look at the Sands, we went main defense stat here. And then crit rate, crit damage, for sure, if you can get it. Some energy recharge is nice, but very not necessary. And because he is Geo, Elemental Mastery is useless. But yeah, if you don't have access to the Husk of Opulent Dreams... you want to probably just use Noblesse Oblige as an okay set for him, at least to start off, because he does get that ult pretty consistently. You could also use some sort of 2-piece Archaic Petra and 2-piece maybe like an attack percentage or something, but definitely you want to get the Husk of Opulent Dreams at some point. It's all the way in Inazuma. Let's move on to the talent section. So as I mentioned before, his normal attack talent, I have not even leveled up. As you can see, he's not a character that's going to be doing damage himself with his weapon. But his skill, however, you can even crown this if you want to, but not necessary. Level 8 for both is just fine. But let's go over the talents. So Albedo creates a solar isotoma. Again, I just call this the flower. You don't have to. Using alchemy, which deals AoE geo damage on appearance. It has the following properties. When opponents within the solar isotoma field take damage, the solar isotoma will generate a transient blossom which deals AoE geo damage. This damage scales off Albedo's defense, which is another reason why defense is such a good stat for him. Transient blossoms can only be generated once every 2 seconds. When a character is located at the locus of the solar isotoma will accumulate geo power to form a crystallized platform that lifts the character up to a certain height. That's something I forgot to showcase. Only one crystallized platform can exist at a time. Solar isotoma is considered a geo construct. Only one solar isotoma created by Albedo himself can exist at a time. If you hold it, you can just basically choose where you put it. If you just tap it, he will just place the solar isotoma at his feet. Skill attributes. So the damage, again, based off his 227% of his defense. Very, very long duration, as I mentioned earlier. This skill is on the field for a whopping 30 seconds and has a 4-second cooldown. That is insane. It lasts so long, and you don't even have to spam it, but it's always going to be up, no matter what. There's no reason it shouldn't be up. 4-second cooldown. It's crazy. All right, now we have the Rite of Progeniture Tectonic Tide. Under Albedo's command, Geocrystal surge forth and burst forth, dealing AoE geo damage in front of him. If solar isotoma created by Albedo himself is on the field, 7 fatal blossoms will be generated in the solar isotoma field, bursting violently into bloom and dealing AoE damage. The tectonic tide damage and fatal blossom damage will not generate transient blossoms. You'll see what that means when I showcase it. Calcite Might. So this is a very straightforward talent. Basically, he'll deal more damage to opponents who have less than half their health. Pretty good extra damage needed on bosses. Then we have a very weird talent here called Homuncular Nature. So whenever you use his burst, nearby party members will receive 125 elemental mastery for 10 seconds. This is very weird because he's a Geo character and he's coming from... Geo reactions are, again, Geo's probably the weakest element in the game. Not the characters, but the element itself, because of all it does is crystallize. So Geo characters do not prioritize ever getting elemental mastery. So having a Geo character that gives you elemental mastery is kind of weird, but it also kind of makes him viable if you do decide to put him in a team that prioritizes doing Vaporize, Melt, or the new Aggravate reactions. He will improve their damage, which is kind of weird, coming from a Geo character. And then he has Flash of Genius, which allows you to maybe 10% chance receive double the product when you're crafting weapon ascension materials. So yeah, kind of a weird character, right? Let's go over his constellations, and then I'm going to show what he looks like in battle and share some final thoughts on him. So his constellations are kind of weird. I've had my Albedo at C0 ever since I pulled for him, and I do not think you need any of his constellations. I don't even think they're like decent to have, to be honest. He is perfectly fine at C0. In fact, I think some of his constellations are a complete waste, but we'll get into that in just a sec. So let's start with the first one. Flower of Eden. Your transient blossoms generated by Albedo's elemental skill regenerate 1.2 energy for Albedo. Again, Albedo is a character that does most of his damage from his elemental skill. His burst is a nice... You just want that elemental skill up. Basically, that's his whole playstyle. And unfortunately, it only regenerates energy for him and not his team. If this was the team's energy, this would be a lot better of a constellation, but it's just him, and he's not a character that you need consistent burst time like Zhonling or Jingcho. So let's move on to C2. This one's kind of a long-ish constellation, so I'm just going to summarize it. More damage. That's basically what this is. More damage on his burst. This is actually a great constellation for Albedo because, again, his skill is his bread and butter, so having +3 to it is just going to improve the damage of it overall. Now here is a very useless constellation. So active party members within the field of his skill will have their plunging attack damage increased by 30%. There is literally one character in the game so far that will benefit from having increased plunging damage, and that is Zhao. There is literally no one else that appreciates having this buff. So it's not really a great constellation. Then we have +3 to his burst here, which is going to be, again, it's a nice damage boost, but it's nothing crazy. C6, active party members within the solar isotoma who are protected by a shield created by Crystallize have their damage increased by 17%. 17%, that is it. That's literally it. Just 17%. That's not anything significant or crazy. For a C6 constellation, are you kidding me? You do not need this. And there's so much, like, it only counts as a shield from Crystallize. Keep that in mind. Not your Zhongli shield, not your Toma shield, not your Diona shield, Crystallize shield, which means you have to do the elemental reaction and set it up. So you have to have the weakest shield in the game for a 17% increase in damage. No thank you. This is awful. Awful, awful, awful. Most of his constellations are. So this is both a bad thing, I guess, for big spender whales, but a good thing for us free to play or low spenders, because C0 Albedo is fine. He's absolutely fine. Alright, before I fight this group of enemies here, I forgot to showcase the little platform thing. So when you place his skill and you step again on the flower, you'll get a little platform lift. Now this thing has, again, very limited to no uses depending on who's on your team. So if you stand on it, you'll get lifted a bit, and then you can jump off of it and do like a plunging attack, I suppose. The only sort of use I've gotten out of it is that when I use him with Yoimiya, it's kind of useful since she can just lift herself up and then shoot the enemies down below. But even then, if the enemies I'm fighting are like melee, they will actually run under the flower, and then Yoimiya can't hit them. And then obviously if you're playing a melee character, this lifting up thing isn't going to do much for you. Like, even Zhao doesn't care about this, right? Because he can only plunge attack constantly and do a lot of damage when he's in his burst form, and he already has a big enough jump to plunge. So this whole, like, lifting flower doesn't do anything. We're gonna try to generate some energy for our Albedo here. And then we're gonna place the flower. And then you can see it did damage as soon as we placed it down. And then if we attack while in it, you can see there's like a blossom effect, right? Those are the transient blossoms. 2 seconds, every 2 seconds. So it lasts so long. It really does. It just went away now, and you can replace it. It has a very low cooldown. Don't be afraid to spam this thing. And then here's the burst. It's, yeah, it's okay. It's not anything to write home about. There you go. You saw some more transient blossoms there, and I showcased the burst. It's really hard to justify using it. Like, it's okay if the enemies are grouped up together, because then you'll get the most value out of the AoE damage, but it's not something I would want to use for like single target on bosses or something. It's not that great. That's why we focus on mainly just building up his skill. Also, something to note is particle generation on his skill is a little RNG. It's less RNG than Zhongli's, but you have a chance of generating a particle every time you hit something with the transient bloom. So hopefully you saw the actual effect when I was fighting enemies. And lastly, I'm just going to talk about some team comps for Albedo. He's a very flexible character. You can just put him in a mono Geo team just like I have here. Obviously, this would be my Arataki Ito team if I had him, but I don't, so I just use Noel. He is just a nice sub DPS Geo. He puts down his field. He does extra damage as Noelle swings her big sword with her burst. And he does generate some energy, but we have Favonius on Yunjin and Goro for even more energy recharge for the team. Here's another example of a team you could use with Albedo. Again, like I mentioned before, I have used him with my Yoimiya. And he does work. I mean, you do get the Geo resonance here, which increases your shield strength as well as you deal more damage. But yeah, overall, I think Albedo is an okay character. I don't think he's a must-have. He's not meta or anything like that. I do believe he is in one strong team comp where you use Hu Tao. It's called like the Walnut comp or something because it has Zhongli and Jingqiu with Hu Tao. for the Geo resonant, or yeah, the Geo resonance. And again, it's just okay. He's just an okay character. I think the biggest thing that holds him back is the fact that he's Geo. Honestly, if he was Pyro, Hydro, Cryo, or any other element with better elemental reactions, he would be probably S tier. But because he's Geo, he's probably A or B tier, in my opinion. He's an easy character to build for free to play or just new players in general, because he's, again, just crit rate, crit damage, and defense. Defense is so easy to get. You get it all the time. And he also has a very simple playstyle, nothing crazy, no like animation cancel or having to aim something or whatever. It's tap E and move on. And then if you need a little bit of burst damage, uses elemental burst and then place down the by the time the animation of him casting his elemental burst is over, you can cast his skill again and then swap him off. That's how short of a cooldown his elemental skill has. I actually think it's the lowest elemental skill cooldown. I would say earlier on when the game was brand new and there wasn't a lot of characters to pull for, I would have probably said he's a decent character to pull for. But now, because there's so many good 5-star and even 4-star characters, and with the new Dendro element being, you know, way more interesting than just Geo's crystallized thing, it's hard to recommend him. I would say only pull for him if you plan to do some Geo team shenanigans or you want a nice sub DPS for your Arataki Ito or Noel if you decide to use him. Otherwise, he's probably just a skip at this point. I'm sorry to all the Albedo mains out there, but if you're trying to save your gems because you are excited for the new characters or you want to save up for a different character, definitely save. And with that being said, that is going to wrap it up for this video. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one.